The clinking of silverware and soft hum of conversations filled the small family-owned diner on the corner of Main Street. It was a Saturday evening, and the warm smell of grilled burgers and fresh-baked pie hung in the air. At a quiet table by the window sat Daniel Hayes, a man in his mid-30s with tired eyes that carried more weight than his age should allow. Beside him, perched on the edge of her chair, was his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, her laughter the one sound that could still soften the lines etched into his face. Daniel wasn't the kind of man people noticed when he walked into a room. His clothes were plain, his shoulders slightly slumped, and his shoes were scuffed from long hours working 2 jobs. But if one looked closely enough, they'd see something unshakable in his gaze, a quiet strength that came not from wealth or power, but from surviving storms life had thrown at him. He was a single father. His wife, Emily, had passed away 5 years earlier after a sudden illness, leaving him with nothing but a mountain of hospital bills and a little girl who looked at him as if he hung the stars in the sky. Since then, Daniel had done everything he could to give Lily a life that still felt safe, even if it meant going without meals himself or working through aching bones and sleepless nights. That evening at the diner wasn't special in any outward way. They had come because Lily had begged him for pancakes and hot chocolate, her 2 favorite things in the world, and Daniel had finally said yes, even though he knew the bill would leave his wallet nearly empty until payday. As he watched her chatter about her drawings and school friends, Daniel smiled, his heart full despite his worries. For him, these small moments were treasures. But just as he lifted his coffee mug, a scream shattered the calm. 2 men, rough-looking and wild-eyed, burst through the door. Their presence silenced the room in an instant. One grabbed a woman who had been sitting near the counter, a young professional in her late 20s, and yanked her from her seat. The other brandished a knife, waving it threateningly at anyone who dared move. The diner froze. Forks hung in midair, waitresses stood petrified, and the hum of conversations died into heavy silence. "Don't anyone try anything," one of the men barked. The woman struggled, her face pale with terror, but the man holding her twisted her arm cruelly, making her cry out. Daniel's first instinct wasn't calculation or fear. It was Lily. He glanced at his daughter, whose eyes had gone wide with confusion and fright. In that moment, Daniel's heart pounded not just with adrenaline, but with the instinct that had guided every decision he had made since becoming a single father: protect her. But then his eyes moved to the woman in the attacker's grip. She wasn't his daughter, but she was someone else's child. Someone else's world. And Daniel knew, he couldn't just sit there. Slowly, he rose from his chair. "Hey," his voice cut across the tense room. The knife wielder turned, sneering. "Sit down, old man, unless you want her blood on your hands." But Daniel didn't sit. His voice was steady, almost calm, though his heart hammered against his ribs. "You don't want to do this." For a split second, the men laughed, a humorless, mocking laugh. The kind that came from people who thought the world owed them everything. And then, in a blur, Daniel moved. He lunged forward, grabbing the arm of the man with the knife, twisting it sharply the way he remembered from years ago, long before life had buried his past under bills and broken dreams. The blade clattered to the floor. In the same motion, Daniel shoved the man back, his body moving with precision that shocked even himself. The second man tried to drag the woman away, but Daniel was already there, pulling her free, placing himself between her trembling body and the attackers. Chaos erupted. Chairs toppled, people screamed, but Daniel didn't waver. He fought with the desperation of a man who had already lost too much in life. Every punch, every block wasn't about glory or heroism, it was survival, protection. It was about showing Lily that courage meant doing what was right, even when it was terrifying. Within moments, both attackers were on the ground, groaning and subdued. Someone had called the police, and the wail of sirens grew louder outside. The diner filled with gasps, whispers, and stunned eyes, all fixed on Daniel. The woman he had saved clung to him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You saved my life," she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel simply nodded, catching his breath, and looked back at Lily. She was safe. That was all that mattered. But then, as the police stormed in and dragged the attackers away, the whispers grew louder. Did you see how he fought? He moved like he was trained. Who is this guy? The woman, still trembling, looked up at Daniel. Who are you? Daniel hesitated. He wasn't used to eyes on him. He wasn't used to being seen. He lived his life in the shadows of struggle, unnoticed, just a father doing his best. But now, with the entire diner waiting, something inside him shifted. And that's when his secret began to unravel.